Hi there and welcome back to Triplicate, and here we have our Salter kitchen scales, and they sort of work. If I put something on them, we get sort of half a digit. Put something a bit heavier on, we get sort of some digits. So they seem to be working sort of measuring things, but the problem is the display. And if I zoom you in, you can see there is a crack going up there. Yeah, I can see that on the little display, so I'm sure you can see it on the video. So the display has broken, and I don't know how that happened. The one day they worked, the next day we got them out and they didn't work. Must have been dropped and we didn't notice. So the question is, right to repair and all that, can we repair them? So I did have a half-hearted look round to see if anywhere did spares for these things, but my search also led me to Argos, which are selling them for £9.99 new. So I can't see how anybody can actually ship any spares out for £10, even if I'm repairing it and not including labour. So it's just too cheap to be worth repairing. And here are the new ones, somewhat cleaner and shinier than the old ones, and these something heavy. Work very nicely, thank you. 313 grams. For the wire strippers, I'm sure you needed to know that. Right, I will now take the new ones downstairs, because I don't want to tear into them. I will get into serious trouble if I take these apart. So, if we can't repair them, well, let's tear into them and see how they work. I've always been curious as to how these things work. They've got springs in them, for sure. So, let's break out the screwdrivers and see what's inside. Okay, so no screws on top, and aha, no screws on the bottom either. Well, what we can do is take the battery out. How do you do this with that? I think is how you do these. One battery. We'll keep that because I think it's. Well, shall we get the meter on it? Never mind. Thinking about it. Let's see what it gives us. There you go, 3 volts. So there's still plenty of go left in that battery. So we will hold on to that for the new set, and it's a 2032, so there's a few things to take those. Okay, so we'll put that over there, and we will see if we can find some ways of taking this together. So, are there screws lurking under these feet? It would appear not. Now, there's something lurking under that label. Right, well, remember, we're not ever going to fix this. Now we'll have this label off. Oh, we'll try. Oh, there's a hole. And in that hole there is a screw. Do you think that's it? Just one screw? Right, we have a rather grubby screwdriver, crosshead screwdriver of some sort. And we can get this screw out. No. We need a screwdriver with a bit more oomph. Try this one. And there we go. Let's see if we can persuade it out around the remains of this label. Right, but, well, get off. A little magnetic tray so I don't lose screws when I take things apart and matter so much with this, because we're not putting it back together again. And it came with a little magnet and a little mirror. There we go. Oh, wonderful. Right, so does anything come apart now? It would appear not. Have a look under the last 2 feet. No. There is another similar screw there. That's bizarre, 2 identical screws right next to each other. Ah. Slightly odd way of doing it. Does it come? Oh, that looks like that's coming apart now. We can. There we go. Okay, so what we appear to have is basically an element onto a fairly sturdy bottom plate, or top plate, because that goes onto the top of the scales, and another fairly sturdy bottom plate screwed to this plastic bottom. And this element, which we shall investigate further. So let us, there are some very small screws in here, let us see if we can find a screwdriver that will undo some of these. Let's get these 2 metal plates off. Easy window. Mountain of screws, so that will come off. Right, and there are 2 more screws screwing on the other side of this, and there's a blob of something or other there, and a blob of something or under there, something or other there. Right, shall we just get this chunk of metal off? Out of the way. I'll try to. Whoa, that's. Ow. Tight, my wrist spasmed. Oh, there we go. 1, 2. Right, so we have this little thing which we will look at further, and a piece of metal and go with the scrap. And now we have And you see that the circuit, battery and the circuit. So let us see if we can get those off with a very small crosshead screwdriver. So I shall find, well, hang on, this one, that's going to be way too big. No, small crosshead screwdriver. I shall bring you back when I've found one. Okay, so here we are, crosshead screwdriver of sorts. Seems to fit in these screws. Let's just rip all these screws out. There we go, two little switches. The display, well, you see that, let me try a bit of a, so the display, it's just glued down with double-sided sticky. And just has those, I don't know what they call this stuff, it sort of conducts in lines down, so you can use it to get a number of connections between these pinouts for the display, where it says display, and the display, which is broken, as we know. And these are the four connections from this thing, which we'll talk of in a minute. That blob is the Salter Scales chip. The silicon glued directly to the PCB, and that's about it. I don't know what that thing's doing. Smoothing the power supply. Right. Okay, well, not a lot we can do with that. It's just a little micro. And associated circuitry underneath here somewhere. This is the interesting bit, the sensor. Now this, I am certain, and we will find out, one end bolts to the base and the other end bolts to the top. And if my right hand here is the base and this is the top, it bends, which I can't bend much just with my fingers, but you could see, well, you wouldn't see, take my word for it, it does. And the top bounces up and down. You can feel the top going up and down when you press on it. So what I believe is happening, and we will find out, is that under this piece of white gunge there is a strain gauge, and under that piece of white gunge there is a strain gauge. So when this bends, the top stretches and the strain gauge detects that, and the bottom compresses and the strain gauge, the other strain gauge detects that. And the electronics in here does some sums and works out exactly how much it's bent, and it's assuming this block of aluminium looks like stretches linearly for the amount of force on it, or it's got a lookup table in there to convert stretch to, that's more likely, convert stretch to amount of weight on the top. So a strain gauge is basically a resistor. So this is what Wikipedia says about strain gauges. Basically it works on the basis that if you take a wire and stretch it, it will get longer, and because the volume still will stay the same, thinner. The cross-sectional area will go down, and since the resistance depends its length over cross-sectional area, the resistance will change. So the way these things work, they have little metal foil wires, and they go backwards and forwards many times, so you get plenty of chances to, well, so that you've got a decent length wire and a decent resistance. And if you want to know more about them, there you go, there's the Wikipedia article. And I had a quick look to see if you can buy them, and here we go, eBay sells them for the huge price of £4.14. So if I want a strain gauge, I will simply go and buy one of eBay, so I don't have a problem with chiseling open the ones on the scales and probably wrecking them in the process. So go on, let's go to it. So this, as we've seen, the strain gauge is basically a resistor. So these 4 wires basically have 2 resistors. So should we break out the meter and see if we do have 2 resistors. Zoom out a little bit, put her in ohms. $749 kiloohms, I don't think. Well, we'll see what. $1 kiloohm, that seems more likely. A lot of kiloohms. So, yeah, 1 kiloohm. So it's the 2 inner and the 2 outer. So what I think we should do, this is the thing we can do with any of this. So I will fire the soldering iron up. We will pull, click, there goes the soldering iron. We will actually disconnect these 4 wires so we can get the meter on better, and we'll see if we can get it this, might get a couple of mole grips or vice grips if you're not English, and see if we can bend this, or I could screw it back onto the base and top, I suppose. Anyway, we'll see. And we'll see if we can get it to, and we'll see if we can get a reading out of our strain gauges. Okay. One, 2, 3, 4. Right, electronics. Wasn't off. Right, it is now. So we'll away with the electronics. Right, we and the solder. We'll turn the iron off. Okie dokie. So we will. It was the outside 2 we reckoned. That's rubbish. Look at the state of that. Anybody knows where you can get decent little test leads, jump leads, please leave a comment giving me details, because okay, that's a mess. It'll do. Because I only seem to be able to get these really terrible ones, and the wires are really cheap and horrible and break. Are you in the frame there? Does this one not? Have we got it? The trouble is, because we're trying to measure quite small changes in resistance, right, I am going to see if I can get anything that I can grab on the ends of this and give it a good flex. Okay, so we have some means of applying some bend to this, and the thing is 1 kilo ohm, almost exactly. So let's bend it and see. Let's all a bit flaky, all a bit flaky. So let's bend it and see if we can measure any change in resistance. So that's quite a lot of force I'm putting on that. Does it appear to be bending? No. Interesting. Okay, well, we'll try the other one. Okay, that's the other pair. Again, 1 kilo ohm or thereabouts. Let's bend it, and we get nothing. Right, I might quickly screw the base and the top back onto here, and then, because I know we get something if we put a weight on it, so let's see if that has any effect. Okay, so I've screwed this back, that end of the base and this end to the top, or the metal plate that connected to the top. Well, let's see if we get any change here, and I'm going to give it a good push. You see it's moving. No, so the change in resistance must be too small for the multimeter to measure, and they do suggest you use a Wayne bridge to measure it, and you can get chips, I think, that will do that job for you. Anyway, since these guys, I'm still assuming there is the strain gauge under here, but since they're cheap to buy, let's just take a knife and cut this gloop off and check we actually do have a strain gauge in there. Okay, so the wires go down the side. Let's see where the wires go, shall we? Oh, they break off. Okay, well, we'll see how this comes off easy enough, this stuff. The scalpel goes straight into my fingers. I always wanted to be a surgeon. Yep. So there's some kind of a, let's see if I can get this in the camera so you can see, focus for me. So there's some kind of a contact board there, and there's 2 little red wires going this way and 2 little red wires going that way. Right, let's see what we've got under this here. Well, there's the wires, go to that end. Right, don't know whether the camera will focus on that, but under a microscope I can see that that's the backwards and forwards lines you would expect on a strain gauge. But is it a double-ended one or a 2 elements back to back? I don't see why they would use 2 elements on when one would do on such a budget unit, so maybe it's a sort of a double-ended element. Interesting. Okay, shall we? I don't think I can get it off because it's super glued on. I'll have another go. And then we'll hack into the other side, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be exactly the same. Okay, so that's the other side, same as this side, as I expected, and that is what basically is at the heart of your kitchen scales. 1 block of aluminium and 2 strain gauges, and a battery holder and some electronics and a couple of switches, and a circuit lurking below a blob of pitch, and a broken display, and a base, 1 sheet of metal and a top, screw to another sheet of metal, and a couple of little push buttons, and a battery. And how much of this is any good ever again? Yep, the battery, which is still showing 3 volts, so it'll go in the new scales when the battery that's in them runs out. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that quick teardown of a set of kitchen scales. I've certainly always been curious to know how they worked, and now I do, and now I have an urge to make some sort of a project round a strain gauge or 2. I'll have to think what, unless anybody has any suggestions. So that is it for this video. We were not ever going to try and fix it because the display is broken and we can't get another one. And we won't fix it now because I've crashed the sensor. So yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. So it's goodbye from Triplicate. Goodbye.